Hello, everyone. My name is Tim B. Green, and this is Crush It Club, episode 24. Nothing is everything. So this is actually based on an article I did, which is on LinkedIn. You go check it out there if you want. But essentially, this has come up over and over again. Authors of books, sellers of systems, and I think it's just a human trait because we have let's call it a narrative nature, where we tell a story and the story makes sense and it helps us make sense of the world, which is more complex than most people give it credit for. What happens is when we find a valid solution to something, when we find something that seems to make sense, we then get the sense that it is everything, that if we only do this one thing, our entire world, it would solve all our problems, blah, blah, blah. And it's internally consistent. It makes perfect sense. Now, let me give you an example. And that is from what I talked about yesterday about mindset. If your mindset sucks, if you're always pessimistic, because let's be honest, mindset is just an update of the idea of be a glass half full kind of person. So it's more about optimism and not deluding yourself as to what bad things might be true, but just focusing on what good things are also true, because both are true at the same time. So it's very easy to say, and it's interesting that Daniel Kahneman talks about this in his new book, Noise. He talks about the difference between super forecasters and their personal, their cognitive, their mindset properties, and regular forecasters. There are many, many experts out there who do an abysmal job despite the lack of credentials, and even more so, the lack of confidence, which seems to be completely correlated, right? So it's like, I have a PhD, therefore I'm exceptionally confident in that I can do this, which is true, right? People, and they may be, but by and large, it's found that the opposite is true. The more confident they are, the more qualified they are, they tend to sort of adjust for their certainty, because it's like, well, I'm a world expert at this, so I must be right. So then they compensate for their own expertise to the point where they're no longer accurate. They're just overconfident in the judgments they've made. And when he talks about super forecasters, he says the thing that makes super forecasters is they're exceptional at making accurate or better than most experts' forecasts, which is not necessarily a high bar, unfortunately. But what it is what they do different is they are willing to listen to somebody else, like me, who oftentimes is contradictory or provocative. So what they found is the people who are super forecasters, and there's now groups of them, the people who are exceptional at it will, as he talked about in the book, I think they sort of have like an invitation only sort of private mastermind group. So you can say, hey, I know the solution to something. And then they go, great, tell us about it. And instead of everybody going, yay, you're so amazing, which is good for your ego, but not necessarily good for getting at the truth, what they do is they said, okay, I agree with this, this, and this. Have you thought about that? And then what the people who become super forecasters do, and they go, oh, you got a point there. Instead of getting entrenched in their position like most people do, like we do by nature, instead of getting defensive, they go, maybe I don't have it nailed. Maybe there's some other things I need to consider. So super forecasters are people who will change their mind using what Kahneman, terribly in my opinion, called system 2. System 2 is slow deliberative thinking. So that's this part right up here, the prefrontal cortex, which develops somewhere in probably your mid-20s, around 24, 25 years old. where you become fully an adult. Before that, there's something called myelination. So myelination is the insulation around your axons, right? So it's basically the difference between dial-up, if you remember that, that awful sound you used to hear way back in the day, to light speed or optic fiber. So your brain basically myelinates from the back or the brainstem forward, and then the last part gets myelinated when you get into your mid-20s. So this executive function part of your brain up here, when you start using it, which is harder, right? Again, Kahneman talked about thinking fast and slow. The thinking fast part is system one, intuitive, makes shortcuts, is super fast, but oftentimes makes errors, which in most cases are still good enough. System two is like, I have to sit down and think about this hard. So what happens for these super forecasters is they have trained themselves, they have learned to do a lot more system two thinking, to change their minds quite often, to question their own assumptions, to meet challenges, but not just be intransigent, not just be, you're wrong and I'm right because I know a lot. They question it, and they make comments like, now that I've thought about it, I'm going to stay with my original position. But they're not too self-certain. So this is where this nothing is everything comes in. So you could easily say, and this is what Kahneman was saying in his latest book, Noise, was it's very easy after the fact to make an explanation, to make a narrative, which is natural for humans and rather system one in its nature, to say, well, yeah, this happened, this happened, this happened. And now that we know the outcome, this storyline makes perfect sense. We can form a potentially illusory causal chain. Like, well, I used to not have positive mindset. And even though I had the intellect and I knew all about investing and I knew all about entrepreneurship, I never acted. So yeah, mindset is everything. If I only had mindset at the beginning, then I would be here, because after I changed my mindset, I arrived here. And Kahneman's clever, brilliant, and Nobel level argument is, sure, after you know the outcome, you can rationalize backwards, you can narrate backwards to say, now that we're here, we can look back and see what caused it. But the flip side of that is these super forecasters. Super forecasters are people who can narrate forward and say, we think this, we're going to change our opinion anytime we have good reason to, and then we're going to make a prediction where we don't know the outcome. That is much harder. So that's what I mean by nothing is everything, is after the fact, in hindsight, like I always say, feel like action is everything, but it isn't. Without action, your mindset means nothing, but without mindset, your action means nothing. Let me do that again. But without action, your mindset also means nothing. So we could easily say action is everything. If you don't act, nothing happens. But if you fail to act because your mindset isn't in such a way that you believe you can do it, nothing happens also. So nothing is everything. When somebody hands you a system, a book, the reason leaders are readers, the reason Warren Buffett reads apparently hundreds of pages a day, and most of the top and most successful people in the world do that, is they know nothing is everything. So they keep looking for that extra piece that helps explain something. My personal example right now is these videos. They're taking longer than I expected, and they're keeping me away from other things. So I'm adjusting my strategy to keep it sustainable, but I might not get to the subtitles tonight. In any case, please understand, nothing is everything. Question your assumptions, make predictions on them if you can, and then see the outcome, but don't assume a great narrative that fits the outcome is necessarily the truth. My name is Tim B. Green, and that was Crush It Club episode 24 Nothing is everything. Bye for now.